take to quit your job and go into entrepreneurship full time? That's the question we try to answer today on today's podcast. We have Garrett Peters rejoining the show for the third time, as well as his wife, Stephanie Peters. They're the co-founders of Duncan Stone, and Garrett did exactly what I was talking about. He quit his full-time job to run the business as its CEO. Garrett and Stephanie also join me and Joy, my wife, on today's episode as we talk through the journey of entrepreneurship, its highs and lows, and what that's looked like for each of our respective businesses. Stay tuned. Before we dive in, we have a word from one of the amazing businesses that sponsors the podcast. And of course, if you've ever thought about sponsoring the show, you can always support us on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice, or you can reach out at blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. Enjoy today's episode. We'll be right back soon. When disaster strikes in your home, do you know who to count on? I'm talking about when water damage, fire damage, or mold becomes a problem in your house. You need someone that you can trust who's going to get your house back in working order. That's why I love recommending Best Option Restoration here in Northwest Arkansas. Best Option Restoration is the perfect choice for when you need that initial response for damage in your home. They're a national leader here in our Northwest Arkansas community, and they are restoration specialists that can give you the peace of mind you need when you're facing the unthinkable. Your home is somewhere special, which is why you need someone who sees the value in your home and wants to get you taken care of as quickly and efficiently as possible. Best Option Restoration is so committed to helping you with your home that they have an answer line that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can talk to an actual person about getting a specialist out to your home and resolving whatever damages you're seeing in your house. So if you experienced fire damage, water damage, or discovered mold in your home, call Best Option Restoration today to restore your house back to the home you love. Call 479-458-8840 or click the link in the episode description to contact Best Option Restoration today.
You know, people over the years, everyone has like friends and family who start businesses, right? And, you know, you guys didn't just start a business. You're at the point now where the business has really become like its own thing. Yes. It's not like a side hustle. It's not like you're writing the business plan on the cardboard and like, what could this become? Yeah, I mean, how many years are you in now with Duncan Stone?
So we started the business in 2019 officially. It's like put the business together, launched in 2020. So
February 2020.
We really say spring. Yes, we can get in the chaos of that year. But we launched in 2020 is officially kind of when we did that.
So 4 years is like a good.
We're gone year 5 basically.
And then how many are we?
It is for year 5.
And then when you left Harvest Group, when you were at Harvest Group,
I left
at Arena. That's right.
Yeah. I left Harvest Group in 2019.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Arena. Yeah. But point being, when you decided to come on full time,
2021.
Yeah.
That was the rough year.
That's the rough year.
How dare you?
That was the most rough year of our business. What's right?
When I started on the business, it was the most rough year.
Because of, or that's why he came. All of the above. Oh, okay. In a good, positive and negative way.
Okay. Sweet. No, it was bad. I absolutely agree.
But that's why
I agree with this. I know. Because I want to hear about y'all's start.
Oh man, yeah.
And that's the cool thing about this, why we set this up was like, we have enjoyed watching y'all's journey too. And y'all have your own story around starting a business and the ins and outs of how you do that. How does it affect your marriage? How does it affect your life? Like we lived through that starting Duncan Stone. And when I left in 21 to jump into the business full time, it was already kind of going, and as a side hustle for me. Stephanie at the time was working more on the business. So one of the things that we should talk about today is like what was happening now or then versus now. Like the first year and a half, Stephanie was really the one running the business for the most part, truly.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't have any capacity to do it. I had a full-time job. And so
what was your perception of the business at that time?
I mean, the perception was, I was thinking of it in terms of like a side business.
Was it like,
It's like a
that's kind of
passive
a cool
thing.
Like,
Well, I was always involved. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
from day one you were in.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was always like heavily involved in the start of the business and just kind of getting it together and getting it going. But from the like thinking about fulfillment, like fulfilling orders, like Stephanie was doing all that work.
Right. Or even doing like back end research. Like we would go put our kids to sleep at night when they were y'all's age. And then we would get our computers out.
Yeah.
People would be like, what shows you were watching? We're like, we're not watching shows until 11. And, but we found joy in work.
Yeah.
But there's some people who were like, oh, that sounds terrible. But for us, like there's some play to work in the way that we're wired. And so it was connecting, and like the idea of like connecting and growing and building something was really exciting to us. And so it wasn't like this is terrible.
Yeah.
It's like actually really energizing.
And when you and Sarah started the business and like you were envisioning the business, like, do you remember like your first sale and being like, okay, like this is.
Yeah. Well, my first sale was to my mom.
You know what?
It's like, does this actually work?
Always.
Are we getting this, into ship station? Can we process this order correctly?
It was funny.
I remember the early on, like sending pictures. We had a UPS, like when we got to upgrade to like the white box, like the little plastic box that USPS gives you, like when you can't fit everything in your mailbox for outgoing mail. So they would leave us this box, and every day I'd fill orders and I'd send them pictures like, look, there's 6 orders, and and I would just be like, you did it, like that was like, I remember very vividly day after day, just fulfilling that little box and just being so excited that as the box grew to be like, oh gosh, we can hardly fit all the orders in this little bitty box.
No, and I don't fully know your background, but my perception is not like, sometimes when people start a business, they're like, oh yeah, I had a lemonade stand when I was, 8, and then I sold this, and like they have like kind of the entrepreneurial bug, I guess, through a whole life.
Yeah.
Was that the case for you?
Yes.
Okay. So
it has been. Even whenever I was in high school, I was in photojournalism at high school and like processed my film, and I'm like, how can I make money? And I would take my camera out to like the baseball fields, youth fields, and take pictures, and then go process pictures and then take them back to the next game and sell the pictures to the parents. That was like my side hustle that I started. Like, maybe this will work.
Was there something before Duncan Stone for you? Like something else that you had tried, and like even like in the like physical product world?
Yeah, I got into like woodworking.
Okay.
And I did like a couple like craft shows and things like that, like shelves, tables. Like didn't have any money, and I was like, I really want that piece of furniture, and I can't go buy it. So how can I build it? And so I would go to like Lowe's with my kids on the carts and like pick up all the materials, and I'd be like, how do I use this saw? I'm gonna keep laying here and be like, please don't cut your.
I'm so nervous. This stressed me out because Joy.
I feel like I'm the same wavelength of, I haven't done woodworking, but I'd be like, this new thing or hobby or sewing or or like I got all the cake decorating supplies ever one year, and I like made all these cakes. And then I didn't go the step farther and be like, how can I make money off of it?
Right.
It's like double.
Yeah.
But then I started calculating then like what I was making for the time I was putting in. I was like, this isn't going to work. So I X that, I was like, so I was constantly thinking, how can I replace, in the back of my mind really was Garrett's income. And so when I realized that wasn't going to work, I got into like, okay, this real estate thing, actually, I think I could flip a house. I really think that we could do this. And so somehow I talked him into doing a real estate weekend investing, and he went with me. And we left with like a very different vision for our life. It was the first time someone asked us, like, if you could lay out your workday, ideal workday, what would your workday look like from the time you woke up to the time you went to bed? Like, you have to actually be working. Like, you can be like, I'm at the beach. Like, that doesn't count. Like, what would you do? Why would you do it? What's your why in that? And made us like really hash out some of those things as a couple. And it was the first time that we were like, wow, we really want our life to look different. And this guy gave us a really hard truth of like, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're never going to get there. Like, you're going to be here 10 years from now sitting in the exact same place if you don't make a pretty hard shift in your life.
Is that because you were just relying on like salary?
Yes.
The 1-3%.
Yeah.
We're saving a little bit every year.
Because at the time, like, I wasn't working. I was staying home with the kids. My kids, we were just kind of living paycheck to paycheck. We would save a little bit, but it wasn't enough to be like, we could actually do much.
Yeah.
And so all of our income, all of our cash that we really had that was tangible was in our house. So we, the next week, put our house up for sale to liquidate all the cash out of our house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started hustling in real estate. So we flipped a house, moved into a duplex after that house sold for a rental property asset. And then I made a list to our realtor of everyone who had inherited property, but they didn't live in the state of Arkansas. And I was like, here's the list. I need you to go call all of them. And so we cold called them, bought 10 acres out by the Blessings and around Fayetteville. And then I took like a year and a half and developed that property into 3 lots and sold those 3 lots.
Holy cow. Jeez. She was real estate.
I was hustling. But the whole time I was thinking, how can I replace Garrett's income? Every time we would get to the end of a project, it'd be like, this isn't going to do it. Like, yeah, we made money. And I learned a lot.
It was like lump
It
sum
wasn't
cash.
sustainable.
Yeah. It wasn't sustainable.
I can't keep doing
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't sustainable.
And then
And then I got to the end of the 3rd lot sold, and we had our 3rd son, and he was, under a year. And I was watching Sarah, our business partner, sort all these carts and do all these. And I'm like, why are you doing this like this? And I was like bored. I was creatively bored. I had finished the projects I was working on. I wasn't starting anything new at the time. And that's whenever I kind of stepped in and was like, why don't you just let me do the business side? I love learning new things that I don't know what I'm doing. It's energizing to me. I don't know what I'm doing in this space of paper goods, but I want to figure it out.
But you know what I love about that though is I feel like, and this is a common trend on the podcast, of talking about how it's framed on social media versus the actual experience someone goes through. And in this case, it's on social media. It's often framed as like, you started the business, you knew exactly what you were doing, you knew exactly how to do it. And more, I talk to people like you who are running really incredible businesses. And I think there's a distinction here between figuring out along the way, but still not having like a crappy product.
Right.
Some people have a crappy product and they're like, well, I'm figuring it out. And it's like, well,
Still.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Y'all had these beautiful journals, but you were learning how to do business along the way.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think that's talked about
Mm-hmm.
in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
So
And Sarah and Stephanie were really like in 2019, 2020, when we were sourcing our first line of products, we made the original version was pretty bad. It was bad. And they got some feedback about it, and made the shift of how we really wanted to build out the brand and the look of the products. And that was a huge step because it was before we're like, we have no business yet. We have no website yet. We have nothing. It's like our first round of products. But to your point, like we were just dead set on, we have to make a real high quality, great product.
Yeah.
We can figure out the business stuff.
yeah,
Like we'll figure all that other stuff out to your point, but
Yeah, we had great feedback.
we had great feedback.
Just the foundation of our business.
Yeah.
to make it like a product different from the other things in the market.
And the girl that we had talked to had gone to school. Part of her degree was actually around paper goods.
So
And so she was like, how does it make you feel when like, it's like not just like the look, like think about all your senses whenever you engage with this. Like, what's the texture of it? Like, what does it look like? What is it like?
oh wait,
And then if you pull it off the shelf in 10, 20 years, it's still resonate with you, or has it lost, because of the type of like way you designed it, like it doesn't, you're like, oh, this is dated. This was made in, 1980 or 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So she made us think of it with a different lens.
Now, the business, it's really fun, like seeing updates on LinkedIn about the business. How you guys just redid your Amazon, we did a storefront page.
Amazon store.
What's it like? Like, how are things different today compared to like 3 or 4 years ago? Like, because now you're in a position of like scale and like these sort of bigger, 3 or 4 years ago, you wouldn't maybe necessarily paid to redo the storefront page or paid to redo a website. In those early days, you kind of have just enough just to have, people can click buy and it works.
Yeah.
and the difference of now in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
You said that year.
Oh, yeah. What does it look like now versus 2020 and 2021?
Oh, I don't work on the business nearly as much.
Yeah.
And all the things that are happening. I joke that I hired out my work to someone way more qualified than me. But really, like I am
You're like, he's really,
I'm a
like you.
well, I'm just a starter at by nature.
Yeah.
Like I'm even like we were talking about gardening earlier. Like I love the cultivating, grow, like the beginning stages, like planting. And like once it's kind of like, oh, it's happening, it's growing. I'm like, I kind of lose like the energy, like the excitement for it. And so like I can start getting burned out in that season of a business, I'm realizing. And so having other people with different skill sets step in, I'm still obviously very part of the company and vision casting and meetings, but what I actually work on is very different.
Yeah.
You know, that now he runs all of those things.
I think a couple of things come to mind. Like in the year of 2021, so like I left my full-time job in 2021 to do our business, to jump in full-time. It wasn't until probably 2022 that I stepped back and looked at how our business was built and realized like this is built on us. It's built on me. It's built on Sarah, who's our creative director, and it was like and marketing kind of lead. And I'm like, this is not good. Like we're truly built our business on ourselves.
As opposed to like systems?
Yeah, as any systems. And I think in some way it was like, it's one of those things that what else are you supposed to do the first few years? Like I wasn't really upset about it. It was kind of like, we just had to figure it out for years. And you got to develop that grit and understand how the business is run. And also you don't have any money to pay anybody to do anything.
Right.
So like that's just how we started our company. So it's like, it is what it is. But if you look ahead, you're like, what is desirable about this thing that we've created? If I'm looking as an investor or somebody that's going to buy this, like, wait, the founders are still like involved in every piece of this business. That's actually not very
like a
desirable investor to me. And so we just kind of switched our mindset of like, okay, as we're beginning to scale, we need to start working ourselves out of this business over time. And becoming more owners and like actual owners of the company. Stephanie's always had that. Honestly, like that's something she's good at is like naturally thinking that way. I'm not as good at that. And so I was like, I just thought I needed to do everything. Cause like who else is going to be able to do this as good as we are?
Well, and also when you're younger in business,
because we're the best.
So I'm laughing about that because in 2021, I was like, look, as the year was kind of coming to a close and I was like, we have got to have a fulfillment team. Like this is like a non-negotiable. I want them today.
And I was fulfilling. I was
in our garage. Yeah. And I saw how much it was wearing him out.
Yeah.
And I was going, you have to, it's an example of handing something to somebody else to do.
Yeah.
Where you're like, they can't do it. And you remember you being fearful of like, they can't do it as good as us. Like I am so detail oriented for our customers. Like I want to make sure that they like have the best experience. And finally, whenever we pulled that trigger, the relief that happened off of you.
Best decision.
You know, I'm going to have hesitant. I mean, it took like 6 months to drag him to the finish line. I mean, like, you could do it. You can hand it to somebody else and they will do a great job with it, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
I'm sure
finding that partner was hard. But
I'm sure that your listeners resonate with that and people that run their own business. It's like, that's a real tension of, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. You guys, is like your business is growing. Like it's once that mindset shifted for me of actually fulfillment is just one piece that is one of many where I'm like, we have a lot of other people that work on our business who are actually way better than me. I was totally joking about us being the experts because honestly we're not. But this mindset of like, it's not just like an expense, a cost. This is an investment. Like I'm finding somebody who's actually better at this and it's going to help my business grow. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, it's actually a win. Mm-hmm. I am investing in the right person to help my business scale. Like, why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
Sounds amazing. And it only comes at that time when you have the actual means to do it though.
Right.
Like we couldn't have done that day one.
Right.
And I think that's the rub. You talked about grit and resilience. And I think a lot of business owners, and I don't have anything against like Tim Ferriss and like the 4-hour work week. It's a great concept, but a lot of people think you start the business and that's your life. Yeah. And when it's not that, it's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with the business? What have I done wrong? And when really those early days are the long hours and you have to make the means to be able to hire out all those functions. And I think that's why entrepreneurship is so difficult for a lot of people, is because for many people, it's an escape. It's an escape from, I don't like these certain things about my life. I don't like these certain things about my job. And like, I remember I had a really young guy one time, probably like 19, 20 years old, who he was like, I just so badly want to be an entrepreneur. And he was just very earnest about it. And like, if he didn't have tears in his eyes, but I could tell he was just very emotional, man. And I was like, okay, well, what do you think that means to be an entrepreneur? And he's like, I mean, you can sleep as late as you want and no one tells you what to do. And I was like, well, don't do that. I just thought, I didn't say it as this guy just was kind of like burying his soul, but I'm like, I think that's called immaturity. Sit down, yeah, but I so the time was I was like, man, I mean, you know, I wake up when the kids wake me up, which is usually pretty early. But I mean, I can't even imagine sleeping late in the morning. But here's a kid who, 19, 20 years old, who for him it was escape. It was, I want to be able to do whatever I want to do. I had a guy on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he talked about how, you know, if you're going to start a business, you just have to be ready to work double the hours you were going to work at a 9 to 5. And at first, you're going to make half the pay. Yeah. Like according to your hours. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that from the get-go.
Did you guys know that was going to be the case for y'all?
No. So I quit my job. And
what year?
This was 2018, I think.
Yeah, I think
So help me understand before you get into that. I'm interested to know, like, Joy, especially from your perspective, was that something that Blake, that you were, was that like a 180, or is that something he'd been wrestling with, of like, there's something in him that wants to start his own business?
He had talked about it a little beforehand, but it wasn't like a very long-lived thing. I think the transition from where he used to work and starting his own business, there was like this friction and this conversation of like what he would like to do, how he thought like, I think I really could do this. And then it was just like listening and being like, yeah, okay. Also like not quite realizing what that meant.
Yeah.
I think I was excited to hear he was like casting this vision and like was really excited. And I knew that what he was doing at his previous company, like how he was talking about what he could do would be like on a smaller scale of like not with working with corporate, all that stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah. Okay. And then I remember talking to a friend about it, just being like, yeah, I think like Blake's gonna start his own business and we're gonna do this. And they were like, the husband of the friend was like, oh, do you guys have like a big like a savings you're gonna like fall back on? And I just remember being like, yeah, you know, I don't think we've talked. But yeah, I know like he's very like money minded to that degree. So I was like, he's figured that out. That's good. But I mean, and we did, but it wasn't like the same. It just, I guess there was a lot that I didn't understand.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that you ask it, because it's pretty rare that I get to talk about it, because no one ever really wants to know how things start. They just want to know, like, I don't know, I guess how things are going today. But so I'd been in this consulting company, and the business had really shifted to mostly like very corporate customers, and like doing like, you show up at like one of like our big corporations here and do like a team building event. Yeah. And you know, like a tried and true millennial, after a while I was like, I just don't know about this anymore. This is really like what I really want to do. Because I'm really big on impact. And like when I work with someone, I want to really feel like the needles.
Well, and you started noticing like the people that you were working with weren't always wanting to work with you, because you were hired by their like higher ups to like help them.
Yeah. Yes, exactly right. Because when I started,
that's a miss. Yeah. You really desire the impact.
Actually, I had a customer at that previous business where I was doing, it was like a traditional like executive coaching kind of business. And I had only met this person over the phone, and then we met in person because they were out of state, and they came in state. I think I was like maybe 27 or 28. This was someone towards the end of her career. And she was like visibly upset that she was like, I thought you were like a retired executive. And I was like, which I never said that. That's just what she had assumed. But I was like, no, I'm just me. So, I'm just a young kid. Yeah. And that was like a data point where I was like, okay, something's a little disconnected here.
Mm-hmm.
But the day I really decided, I had a boss I really loved working for. And I kind of been on the edge of like, would I want to keep doing this or not? And Joy had known that I had a lot of like corporate gigs where I would come home and just be like, I just don't know if that's it. Well, my boss had always wanted to own a Chick-fil-A, and it happened. She got picked to open a Chick-fil-A in Texas. So she was like, hey, I'm leaving. And when she said that, I was like, okay, I said, this is time. It's time, because I knew the person who'd be replacing her, and I'm just like, great guy and a great professional, but I was like, I don't think I really want to work for him. And I'd also had similar thoughts as you of like, I was like, do I really want to do this in terms of like wealth? Yeah, you know, like where I wanted to be financially years down the road.
Yeah.
I was like, do I really want to do this for 10 years? And where would that put me financially? And I don't know. So yeah, this is going to work.
Do you think that you would have left if your boss hadn't have gone?
That's a great question. I think I would have left. I don't think I would have left as fast. I think I would have stayed long.
It expedited the process.
Yes, for sure. It did. It was like, which is my personality though, too, is I'm very like, I don't really, overthink things in the sense of, I'm just like, this is what I'm going to do.
It's like once you made the decision, like, let's.
Yeah. And then the pain point for us was, unlike you, I didn't have an entrepreneurial background. I thought I knew more about business than I did, because our consulting company had essentially failed. We had let go like 75% of the staff, and we had to relaunch it.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that experience, I was like, I know how to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in charge of sales for myself too. And I had sold like $250,000 in revenue. And I was like, man, if I can,
I'm a salesman.
yeah, I thought I was great at it. Really, I wasn't great at sales. I just worked for a company that people really liked. And so I could apply to anything and anyone would have hired me.
But listen, that sort of naivety probably fared well for you in some way. Listen, I'm sure there were bumps in the road.
It caused more pain than good, only because
I'm sorry.
when I framed it to her, when I
Oh,
He's like,
it sucked.
no, but like,
well, what I told her was like, when I pitched it to her, because you have to pitch your spouse. I'm like, this is going to work. She had maybe like 5 or 10 grand in the savings.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I pitched it to her was, it was like, okay, I just sold like $225K this year.
Mm-hmm.
No one else sold it. I sold it.
Mm-hmm.
If I sold a fifth of it,
Yeah.
that's $50K. Yeah, I could live off $50K. Like that's no big deal.
we'd have kids at the time.
Yeah. So I was like, and then we have the cash as backup.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things happened. First day of the business, I got approached by a digital marketer who was like, Blake, we would love to, this is what we want to do with your business. And I was extremely trusting. I didn't know the whole world.
I have heard a little.
I didn't know the whole world of all social media,
That first,
all the stuff.
I forgot that.
So anyway, it wasn't the guy directly. It was his salesperson.
Okay.
She was like, this is all the things we're going to do. Is we're going to take your business, and the fee is $5,000. And I was like, okay. And so I went to Joy and I was like, hey, can we peel off some of your 5K? And Joy was, I remember we did it over the phone because she wasn't there. She wasn't at the house. So I called her and I could hear her hesitation of like, and I was like, but here's how it's like, I made it make so much sense, because to me, it really did make sense.
Right. You sold it.
Totally. I sold it to her.
Sell eternally.
Good salesman.
So speaking back, just to wrap up the story, the 2 pain points, I realized very quickly that I was a victim of like this digital marketing world that's very transaction oriented and not very delivery oriented. Like all the attention to detail that y'all put into like, make sure the product was good, the touch, the feel.
Yeah.
You know, there's a world of digital marketing out there, which is, here's what I sold you. And if it doesn't work, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Which was my experience. So in that first year, I spent $5K on the digital marketer. And it was like a Facebook, ads thing too.
Yeah.
So I spent probably another $10K on Facebook ads. Did not make one sale.
Are you serious?
Not a
Didn't
single
there
one.
that one guy who made you like make a webinar?
That was the same guy, actually.
Yeah.
I was spending money on that.
What a bozo.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. For you guys, I think this was one of my biggest missteps, was when I started Good Advice, I didn't know what the product was. I was like, yeah, I'm going to help people grow their business. But like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Like compare that to like Podcastable today.
Yeah.
There's a very clear product.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could go back in time, I would have pushed what is that product earlier, Because for you, it's like, what is the business? I'm not really sure, but I have this to show
We're
it.
selling.
And a customer can feel it and look at it.
Yeah.
But I found myself in these conversations with businesses. I remember this one guy was like, so like, what do you do exactly? And I was like, well, I'm going to grow your business. And he was like, but like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I remember like this disconnect.
It looks different for different customers.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, nowadays it's so much like I'm so much clearer on like who that customer is and what it looks like. But going back to that first year though, we spent all of our savings almost immediately. I spent almost all of our savings immediately.
Yeah.
And then we were just extremely naive on the path to making money. I thought I'd done $250K in my old business. I thought I could do a sliver of that. I paid for a call service to book calls for me. Because again, I just thought that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was day one of the business. She told me she was pregnant. Oh my gosh.
What? What timing?
Yeah, it was just wild. I mean, she ended up miscarrying. So that's why our kids' ages are different now. But anyway, it's LA. Oh, yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
but I got an email from this call service that was like, hey, we haven't been able to book any calls. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I think my first sale didn't come till maybe 6 months into the business.
And then like a year later, it was COVID.
That's right.
It happened March.
So, and that was another interesting thing. Not to be long-winded, but just when I felt like I had built up some really great momentum, like Arkansas Children's was one of my customers, was one of my best customers. Mm-hmm. And I remember we had this big gig planned together for 2020 and they had already paid the deposit on it and all these things. And our daughter was born on March 11th. And then March 12th, the first confirmed case of COVID was at ACH. And I get an email from ACH. Exactly. We're
really in the postpartum hospital.
Yeah. It's like, we're
not going to do that.
Yeah. We're not doing any contracts. Mm-hmm. We're not going to fulfill this contract anymore. I'll just keep the deposit. And I really overnight, I mean, it was wild.
That is tough.
So our beginning, and it was extremely challenging. And it was mostly my fault. I mean, me being very naive and very spending money I didn't have.
On things that you probably didn't even spend money on yet, like calls, because you just thought that's what you should do. But
because I didn't, it'd be like for you guys, like, the things like redesigning the website, which I know you guys did, I guess maybe 5 or 6 months ago, the Amazon storefront page, like a lot of times you think you need to start with those things. And so, I was spending money on things that I should have spent at scale, not understanding that you don't need to spend money on these things when you start.
Mm-hmm. That's a space that you just work in.
Yeah.
And how you can hire.
Well, that is a challenge, I think, with any business and whatever the stage as well, is navigating where do I invest? Who do I hire? Like who needs to be working on this business? For us, there's been plenty of partners or things that we've pursued or tested. We test a lot of stuff.
Garrett,
I'm always testing. I'm ready to test.
It is. I mean, everybody is on the chopping block.
Okay, that's a little. It's true. I just hold it all loose. I hold it all loose. Well, I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna hire somebody for work and if they've committed to the delivery, I'm like, I'll work with you if you're doing great. That's awesome. But like, I'm not being mean. I don't want to be mean about it. It's like, hey, listen, you say you're gonna deliver work. I don't have to commit my life to you.
Right. Yeah.
We have commitment with our business ownership and our marriage, obviously, but I'm like, you're a contract worker for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm expecting you to deliver this. If you can't do it, I'll find somebody else.
And then even if you deliver for 6 months and then.
Yeah. And it's like, even if you're doing great
your work, it's like.
And it's not like
You're great to work with.
Okay. That's like.
I hear your calls. You're really fun.
I try to make it.
You're not mean.
Well, I think there is a blend. I think sometimes people go so ditch to ditch of, and we've all worked like in the business where, there's the person you work with who really shouldn't still be working there, but like no one wants to hold them accountable, versus the job where like it's so overly action oriented. There's no like actual like culture there.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have a nice like middle.
I try to.
You're not like Michael Scott.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, no, you should fire that other guy. Like, oh, okay.
Am I Michael Scott for our business? Probably in some way.
Michael Scott was a business genius. Hey, people remember that.
Hey, never forget that. One thing, the last thing I was going to say is like, I think the tension with that is figuring out how to navigate those missteps and not let it destroy your business.
Yeah.
It's like, we invested in certain people or things, tools that didn't work out. And we have to say that didn't work. Luckily, it didn't destroy the business though.
Yeah.
And so like, how do you build a business in a way where you can test and try stuff? And luckily, like for you, you invested early on, but like thankfully, miraculously, like God was still in that, and like you were able to like continue to do the business, which is amazing. But
Well, I mean,
it's like that you have to be really diligent about like, okay, I got to make sure this thing continues to last, because a lot of people will make a bad decision, it ruins the business.
I mean, and
or they make a bad decision, they don't change.
And they don't
shift. You know, like it's like you're going to make lots of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, probably. I mean, but it's
100%.
like continually looking at the decisions you're making and going, okay, I know within a month or two, as soon as you know that that's not working, immediately, like, I have to cut this. And we got to step back. We got to reevaluate and figure out another path forward for that thing.
yeah, I posted something the other day on social media about basically exactly this, like removing some of the stigma of failure, because a lot of people put so much emotional stock into the decision has to be the right decision. And if it's not, like everything's riding on this.
Yeah.
And I've just embraced, like, I'm actually not that smart at business. Like, I've just learned that I make tons of mistakes.
Yep.
But like embracing that and innovating from it has,
Well, I think there's a big truth to that. I heard recently, like, somebody that I follow said something like, if your first, edition or if your first product isn't bad, like, if you're not a little bit embarrassed about it, I don't know where I heard this. You probably heard something.
no, this is a great,
It's out there.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If your first, like, kind of take at something you don't feel a little bit embarrassed about, then you waited too long to launch that thing.
Yeah.
It's this concept of like failing fast, launching something, and then you look back and you're like, gosh, I'm so embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
But you were out there, instead of overthinking it, like it's not going to be perfect the first time.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you've ever created done that's right the first time.
Sometimes on Facebook, I get like the, like memories, things that pop up.
Yeah.
Some of mine at this point now, it's most of what I post is podcast stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, things that I posted like a year and a half ago or 2 or 3 years ago. And it's so embarrassed. It's real inside doing. But, honestly though, I cared more about just posting it and just saying what I thought than, like, frankly, I've known people on social media to spend 2 or 3 hours like on a single video post.
Oh,
And you can know what
I don't spend that much time looking at it though.
I spend maybe 45 seconds to a minute. Like, I'm like, yep, that's good. I mean, that's just my approach. I mean,
yeah. And I think there's a lot of good try of that.
but I like you said about not failing or it ruins you, because I think it really is a miracle, honestly, that good advice is still here today because of COVID, but also because of how I blew through our money early on.
Yeah.
And we had friends who were so gracious who were like, yeah, let's give you some money and we were fortunate to be able to pay those people back. But like people who were very generous and believed in us.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, let's help you out.
Yeah.
We don't mind.
Well, one thing, go ahead, Word.
I was going to ask, what was that shift like? Like from that point of like, we blew through all this money, how did you get from point A to now where you currently are? What do you think shifted for you that kind of helped get you?
Because so good advice has been around since 2018, 2019.
6 years. 6 years in October.
Plus 6 years.
Yeah.
So does
That's awesome.
most of your revenue, I'm very naive to podcasting. I don't know. Like, so does most of your revenue come from like?
Most of our revenue comes from the consulting side of good advice.
Okay.
And then the podcast advertising is something I started last year. It's like Reds on the side.
Yeah.
It's just like a nice little side hustle.
Just trying to.
It's basically monetizing the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas before it was a branding. I mean, it still is. It's a branding piece. I've had people on sales call who were like, who is this guy? And then I'll send like podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And now that there's been like 400 plus episodes, it's like, oh, I can start using this now to like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 100. If it was content, he's like,
I'm just curious how that works.
I'd say the big difference today here, and here's honestly what I'm a bit jealous of you guys, the experience y'all had was, so when I was running good advice in the early days, I literally had no idea what I was doing. And I also had no one to talk about it with.
Mm-hmm.
Like all my friends were in 9-to-5 jobs.
Yeah.
Joy was like a great support structure, but she was, doing her life, raising our kids, what have you, and didn't also have, like she wasn't involved in the business.
Exactly.
Like she's still.
That's when I was doing also my own business.
That's right. So,
What were you doing? Were you teaching?
Online language lessons.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So the hardest thing about like failing fast and then like evaluating your failure is being able to like objectively step back and look at it and be like, okay, here's where I went wrong. Because I didn't have the opportunity to have those conversations, my understanding of missteps was it was a very hard process to evaluate. It's like reading the label when you're inside the jar.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I
like,
can
it's
totally
like,
see that.
you know, I would talk to Joy. I'd be like, man, there's something like now in year 6, I've realized how powerful, the product is in terms of the sales process when someone can see the end and they can see what they're getting. I didn't know that early on.
Yeah.
And so I'd be in these sales conversations with people where I couldn't figure out like why I couldn't move the needle. And then I would go to Joy and be frustrated. I'm like, man, like, why didn't that work? Like, why was this customer so easy to sell to? And this other one who should have been a slam dunk wasn't. And a lot of this is just nuance of running a business. Like, you know, knowing that the person who buys your journal is probably not the person who's going to the dollar store also buying it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different customer.
Yep.
And I had to learn that the hard way just through experience, rather than being able to sit down with someone and be like, what do you think's going on? And like really like hashing things out together.
No, I think that what I hear you say is like partnership and community, and not just community in the sense of like people that know what's going on, but somebody you're in the thick of it with. Like this, having somebody in the trenches with you makes a big difference. And we talked about this yesterday and today. For our business, being able to have a team, we have 4 owners of our company and we're all in this together. It's like we've built it in a way, definitely challenging at times, but also we're together doing it, has been invaluable. Like truly our business wouldn't exist unless we had all 4 of us. There's just no way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to create a journal company.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
What
And
the heck
and Sarah would have never
and Sarah
done
would never,
it.
yeah.
without the other half.
So and that's a unique situation for us. And not everybody's needs to go into business with their spouse or best friends. I'm definitely not advising that.
Yeah.
But I think that
tricky.
it's very tricky. But also I think there's something other like entrepreneurs I've talked to over the years have said to me, I wish I had what you guys had. It's a team. Like you have other people in it with you instead of being the solopreneur type of concept.
The hardest thing about it is when you fail, you have no one to like chat with. I mean, like Joy and I like have many conversations about, like I was on a sales call yesterday that I really thought was a slam dunk and it wasn't. And it was very frustrating that it wasn't. So being able to unpack that with her was really valuable.
Yeah.
But in terms of like business vision and business direction, like she's part of the business in the sense of, Blake, how's it going? What do you need from me? Yeah. She's not in the business.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I'll hold it together in the business. So to like be able to sit down with someone and have those conversations is really valuable. And when you don't have that, I think that's maybe been the hardest thing for you is just the emotional toll on me.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, when I get punched in the gut, it's very hard for me to, I won't say like move past it because I do, but I just have no one to really like, it with.
There's a degree in which you do, but it's not the same with like your growth groups that you have. That was one of the things I thought has been different because like some support you get talking to other people
owners
has been helpful.
Yeah.
But it's still not the same as totally.
Well, and because I didn't have someone in a business with me, I would reach out to friends and family or whoever, and I had to learn that everyone has like different perspectives on like money, for example, or entrepreneurship or what have you. So like the person who's like, very fear-based in terms of finances, if you go to them about, an issue having your company, well, they're going to give you a fear-based response.
Right.
Yep.
Or someone who like doesn't understand sales or like the sales cycle or, which I don't know if you guys have a conversation about like selling cycle or if that even is a case for you guys, but for me, my sales cycle, my sales cycle is, because what's the price of a typical journal for you? Like $35. So someone who works with me is going to spend probably $2,500 to $5,000. And so like the trust that has to be built on the front end takes a long time.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would not commiserate, but I would share about how I'd be working on a relationship with someone to like a friend, and they'd be like, yeah, well, I mean, if they're not going to buy from you, you should just move on, which in business isn't like much of your business comes from developing those relationships and nurturing those relationships. And
Yeah.
One thing I was going to say was also early on when he would sometimes be talking to me about like how a sales call went or like a conversation with somebody, and how because he's very like genuine and he isn't like, let me pull him past you, like, yeah, hire me, I'm the best, you know. Even though I knew that he could help a certain customer, he'd be like, well, I just kind of thought, you know, maybe it's best if you, and this was like earlier on, I was like, you need to like
Still the deal. You're
tell them
nice.
yeah, like tell them why
nice.
you are the best, you know?
Right.
And so there was a time where you were like, well, okay, yeah, wait, I could have made that stuff. Like, why didn't I go? So finding that balance of like being genuine and honest and like knowing what's best for them, but also being like, I'm the one who can help you.
And also confident.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're confident of what you can deliver.
I think
At the same time, nice. And
Yeah.
I do care about you.
Well, for me, it was the trauma of the digital marketer. Like that 15 grand almost annihilated us. And so like, I might get on a call with someone who says like, hey, I run like a $500,000 business. I want to take it to 1.5. Can you get me there? And my answer would be like, hey, I think I can, but ultimately it's going to be on you. And like, I would position it back on them, which is what I genuinely feel.
Yes.
But compared to other marketers or salespeople out there, you'd be like, yeah, let's sign the contract today. Like,
Yeah.
why 1.5? We could probably take it to 10 million.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not my nature. It's not who I am. And so Joy, there was a point where I was doing like, in those early years, I was doing so many like speaking events for free. Someone would be like, hey, we love what you're doing when you want to come speak to our team or what have you. And there was a point where Joy was like, you will not do another free event.
Like, you will not.
You're like, we have to grow back that 15.
Yeah. It's like, you will. Because I would go to these events. She'd be like, are they going to pay you? And be like, well, I made some great connections.
It's about the long game, Joy. What do you
I remember being like, you will not do another free. And I was like,
woman.
okay.
Yeah.
And the very next one, I think right after that was Ross Phillips with the chamber, Rogers Lowell Chamber. And he's like, hey, we want you to speak of this thing. And I was like, okay, well, but also here's my fee. And he was like, okay, fine, sweet.
You're like,
I was
I
like,
could just charge.
yeah, I know. I was like,
And you're like, and you didn't even like probably blink.
I know. And then I was like,
I should charge
more.
more.
I should charge more. This was too low.
No, we are learning. You're learning.
I charged 25. No.
Yeah.
You worry about it. Yeah, easy. So,
Well, here's the deal for your listeners. Like, people are all over the board with where they're at in their business, right? The reality is, it's like you have to figure out what makes sense for you.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It might not have made sense for you to bring on other partners into your business, potentially. Maybe not. Who knows? But like, you have to figure out like the growth groups and the other people that can really get in the ring with you and go along that journey. We kind of had it built into our business.
Mm-hmm.
We're all owners of this. We're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we had that built in.
Well, the three things.
You just got to figure out. You just got to figure it out for where you're at.
Yeah. There's three things that I think worked really well for you guys is the partnership helped from the get-go, like having different perspectives. I said three things now. I can't remember what the third, the product. The second one was you had a clarity about it. It was like, here's what I sell. Here's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Which, removes so much of the heavy lifting from having like great branding or marketing is like when people can just see it and experience it. The third thing is that you guys were actually really good at it. Like when you actually look at the journal, it's a clear, you get Santa on the podcast. I don't know if we're really good at this. The moment you started having copycat people, that was,
And there's so many. There's so whack-a-mole. It's like you hit one and put it. You told me that, and it's so like
a few years ago when you first posted it, and that
it's so annoying.
I never thought less of you guys, but when you posted that, I was like, oh dang, they have like, they must have like a really good.
What I said.
You're like, I didn't know, but now I know.
Yeah. So
How do you find that out? Does it just appear in some feed and you?
All sorts of ways. So
the one you posted a few years ago was like spot.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
I'm telling you, we have a lot of issues with this. Seriously. Like, we have to figure out a copy.
And it's really hurting some of our key items. Like, and not that they're not still selling well.
Yeah.
It's just like what their growth would have been versus what it is. It's just
a couple. I mean, one, like it's mainly just researching our own stuff on Amazon and out there to see. Like, we'll be in a meeting looking at some of our items and be like, wait, there's a new competitor who's advertising on our listing or whatever.
So you can
do that.
advertise off of somebody else's listing.
And
So
it's like,
it's
oh,
like
crap.
sponsored, and it will have like the listing, right? And underneath is like what you were actually looking for. So you can,
It's a challenge.
they'll be right next to our journal, and they sponsor off.
It's also a part of it. Like we sell on an open marketplace on Amazon. Like we have protection around all our items and all this stuff, and Amazon is a great partner for us, but there's people that knock off our stuff all the time. It is part of it.
Well, and then you work really hard to get Amazon to take that listing down. And then it's like that company already knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in the background already creating another listing.
Just to put it out there.
And so as soon as that listing comes down, they immediately make that.
But they're also manufacturing these books too and selling.
Oh yeah. There's no telling who's selling.
And then they
stuff
copy
out there overseas.
they'll copy our entire listing. Like they'll copy like all of our keywords,
SEO stuff,
SEO stuff, and then they'll just literally like duplicate our listing inside of their listing. So then it comes up with the same searches that you would make.
Did you ever realize like you'd be working on this kind of stuff?
No.
I mean, like if only you could just focus on growing the business, but like as you grow, you have all these other, I said whack-a-mole, these other things where you have to,
so many random things.
Yeah.
That's pretty so fun.
But it's the journey of running a business, right? And I love what you said too about like what works for you. Cause I think that's also something that I've really appreciated in the last probably year and a half is like these tried and true like business sayings or like what have yous that people really resonate with, understanding that for you, that actually may not work for you.
Totally.
And if you're going against the grain, it might be okay.
It takes a certain level it takes a lot of self-awareness. Like what I hear you guys describing is like, you have to know yourself. You have to be aware of what you're good at and what you're not good at. And how often we could leave here and go to a restaurant and people would be like, I wish I would have done what you did, Blake. Like I have all these ideas. If people say that all the time, like everyone wants to do something.
Yeah.
And the reality is like, one, that like, it might not be for you. Like not everybody needs to go start a business.
No. Yeah.
It's probably a bad idea, honestly. Yeah. But two, if you really do, you got to figure out like how you're actually going to execute that. How you're going to like get the right people in to do that
and remove the sexiness around
100%.
Right. Because like, and to know, I think knowing yourself, becoming a healthier version of yourself, and the more that you can do that, because like, I know that I'm better at starting than finishing. So like whoever needs to be on my team with me needs to be like a really good finisher, because it's not something I'm going to be able to execute well. And so like, knowing that about myself, it makes me be more open-handed as our company grows to be like, I am not.
And you're able to use that as a strength for yourself.
Yeah.
Because like, this is where I'm going to focus. And then other people can use, instead of being like, I have this huge weakness. It's like, no, like I start things well.
Well, and I like the whole implied thing there of like sticking to what you excel at.
Right.
Because a lot of people, they'll be like, I'm great at starting. I'm not great at finishing. So let me spend all this like time and attention and money improving on finishing. And I guess there's some merit to that.
Right.
But like you just sticking to like, this is what I do well. And I'm going to just hire.
I just listened to real fast. I have to tell a story. So a couple weeks ago, I listened to a webinar by a girl named Anne Malum is her name. She started Solid Core, the Pilates studio. Have you ever heard of Solid Core? It's huge.
I know.
It's okay. You know Pilates. There's a Solid Core is the name of her business. She sold it last year. It's in major markets. And she stepped out of running the company a couple years ago. But something she said, it was so amazing. She was like, I just figured out early on, like if I'm a 1 out of 10 on a certain task, even if I got to a 5 out of 10, a 6 out of 10, no one wants to hire a 6 out of 10 for a task.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's actually not great.
Yeah.
So why am I even focusing on getting better at that?
Right.
I just need to hire somebody to do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was brilliant because she's like a crazy good CEO. She's like, I just hired all these amazing people, the things I wasn't good at. Yeah. And I focused on my lane and grew this amazing brand. Yeah. And it was just kind of hit me. It's like, why do we constantly like think about that? It's like, there's getting better at stuff is fine. That's great. But also hire somebody or partner with somebody who's really good at that.
Well, and I think there's an interesting line there of like, you have to know enough to be dangerous, to like at least know what's happening there. But beyond that, like I've always told myself, like beyond that, I'm just not going to put any time and attention to it. So a good example is with Podcastable. When I launched Podcastable, I just threw up a basic website. I had a guy reach out who was like, "Hey, here's all the things." I mean, exactly. He was like, "Here's all the things wrong with your website." Literally, the website had been up for 2 hours. Already had a contact form. My gosh. It was like, "Hey, I looked to it."
Cost people. That's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, well, yeah, I had the first contact form. I was like, "Oh, cool, a customer." And then I was like, "Oh, it's someone trying to sell this." But point being, someone had reached out and they were like, "Hey, here's all the mistakes on your website." And I remember I was very polite and I was like, "Hey, thanks for pointing that out." But internally, I was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because at the end of the day, a lot of times younger business owners, like more naive in business, they will spend hours and hours and hours fine tuning, tweaking, and trying to fix the page exactly right when they're not a web developer. They're not a website, whatever. Website, whatever.
And it's like, we'll work on that. But right now, growing this and then.
Yeah. Well, you got to have that perspective of like when to work on certain things. The other piece that she said was super interesting is she speaking to mostly founders. She's like, if you're doing the same thing in 6 months, that you're like the same thing on your business is not going to grow, is what she said. And that was really like it hit me because I'm like, oh, what am I working on right now that I need to begin to offload or change? Because in 6 months, I need to be doing something else. Like there needs to be this next kind of season of me doing something else for our business to grow versus just doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more question for you two guys. In terms of like y'all's marriage and your relationship, do y'all have like work version turns off and like where a married couple turns on, or is it all
I talk about work,
or like is it all intermixed, or like because you don't just do life together, you work together in pretty big fashion. Yeah,
and that's fine. That is a good point. What would you say to that?
I think it shifted. I think what we had to do a couple of years ago is different than what we have to do now. I joke that I can make demands until 5 o'clock.
Once 5 o'clock hits, I no longer work.
Yeah.
Duncan Stone.
Yeah. Just kidding.
What? That's a joke.
I know. That's wrong.
No, I think that we do a pretty good job of balancing out work and fun and like play. Like that's going to play tennis together or doing. So I don't know. How would you answer that?
I mean, I think that Stephanie pointed it out earlier where early on when we were starting the business, it was actually super fun for us. Like we're like, get our kids down so we can like follow up with our praying partner overseas and like see what's going on.
He was like, it's 3 o'clock.
I know. It's in that time. You're just 8 years old. Go to bed. We got to work on the business. So I think it was early on. It was super fun, and there was those lines were definitely blurred way more the first few years for us. And we still struggle with that in some way because we're both wired very similar of like projects or the business or new ideas. Like we're always talking about that stuff. So it's not a big deal to us, but
because to me, if I'm like getting to engage with Garrett on like a future thing, like if it's within our company or if like we both work with nonprofits that we really love and value. And so if we're getting to like dream together and like vision cast and like we can engage together for like future and then that feels really connecting to me. If that's our business or if that's something that like we're both different things that we're working on. So to me, like
I'm connecting. So
we're connecting
or not,
and that feels like an emotional like connection that we could go into that space together and dream forward.
yeah.
So it's whenever we get kind of stuck in the day to day, like we're like in very task mode and like, that's where I'm like it kind of starts feeling tension to me. It's because I don't sometimes do the best. So like I can do it, but like if I'm in the present for a long period of time of things, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting like smothered. Like I need some space to go on a date night or do something that we can kind of like think outside the box of what we're currently living in.
Love that. Well, guys, it's been so fun. This is our third time. Third time on the podcast. Second time with you. So I'm looking forward. It's first time for all four of us. It's a very short list of people who've been on the phone multiple times. So I say usually they don't want to come back. So
listen, I love coming back. We love your podcast. It's amazing. You have such good content out there.
Yeah, thanks,
and
man.
it's really good stuff, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys recording them podcast too. And Onwards and upwards, right?
Yeah.
So
Love it.
for people listening who want to check out your products, duncanandstone.com.
You got it.
The best,
That's the best way. Yeah. Go check us out.
And what's like the best journal you're known for? Or your favorite? Are you allowed to pick favorite?
I would say the Legacy Journal.
Man, I was going to pick that.
That means it is the best.
It's the best item we have is our legacy journal. It's right now. I mean, during Mother's Day, during holidays, it's our best item.
Copycat.
We've got some
here.
They don't. No one's copycatted them yet. It's because it's too complicated. Everyone's has different questions.
It'll pop up.
So
Here.
like they want to copycat the ones that are like
Yeah. We just reviewed yesterday our new items that we're launching this summer, and they are really sweet.
That's cool.
Well,
I'm not gonna lie. So like,
Here's the deal.
they're gonna be sweet.
I put in a request for Garrett. He told me no. Both of us here. I requested, what's the Christmas thing?
Oh gosh, what is happening?
The Christmas event. I can't think what it's called. What's like the holiday during
It's Christmas. That's what it is. That's the holiday.
No, not 12 days of Christmas. The
Advent.
Advent. Is it Advent?
Are you talking about like the
Advent journal.
yeah?
Yeah, talk to me about this. Yeah.
Yes.
You want an Advent journal?
Would you like an Advent journal?
Do they have?
No, they don't have.
No, they don't. We don't.
Oh, you're saying.
currently don't offer.
Oh, you're saying you need to.
This is how our this is
So here's how this process goes. We think of all these ideas,
yeah.
and then we send it to a team that we work with in India, and does all the back end work of like, okay, here's how much this is searched. Here's how many items are out there. Your
You
competition.
can know how useful it is for the fact that I couldn't even remember.
You know, so
Literally a big
so we find out like, will this journal succeed? Like, does it have like the runway to succeed before we ever create it?
Yeah.
So like we
research it.
so we do a lot of like a holiday.
Holiday, yeah.
I'm obviously very emotional.
I could tell.
That's right. It's because back in the day, I was thinking of like, oh man, I need a Christmas gift. Do you all do this?
I really like the season of Advent, so
I'm with you. I love this.
So,
I love
yeah,
it.
well, like I said, it's great having you guys on today. I really appreciate you making the time.
Of course, so thanks for having us.
Hey, for our listeners, if you're tuning in and you're a first-time listener, what the heck you waiting on? Thanks for listening to the podcast. Don't forget, you can always follow us, subscribe to the podcast. If you're a business, you've ever thought about advertising on the podcast, you can reach out to Blake at goodadvicecoaching.com. We appreciate our advertisers on the show. And having said that, that's today's good advice. We'll catch you later.